If you have a fair shop that's already making some sales, but the orders are still inconsistent, retailers aren't reordering, and you still cannot figure out why, I need you to hear this. It's not because you're not working hard enough, and it's not because your products aren't good enough. It's because you're flying blind. And there is data sitting in your fair dashboard right now telling you exactly what's working and what's broken. But no one has ever taught you how to read it. And so you spend time just guessing. I know because I've been there. And you change random things and hope something sticks. And here's what that guessing actually cost you. The average fair seller doing around 10 orders a month is leaving somewhere between $17,000 and $70,000 in profit on the table every single year just by staying stuck. My name is Andy, and I built and scaled my own wholesale brand on Fair from the ground up. And I'm one of a handful of sellers and industry experts that Fair pulls in to test the platform, which means I see how the algorithm actually behaves, not what the forums and the other coaches are teaching you, but what Fair actually rewards. And I took everything I learned and turned it into the Fair 5 framework. It's a 3-phase system that moves you from inconsistent orders to a predictable wholesale revenue engine in just 90 days. It's visibility, it's positioning, it's conversion, it's reorders, and a momentum that compounds. So this is not just a course that you watch once and forget. It's a growth operating system. Just a few extra wholesale orders, which you will gain quickly throughout this program, will more than pay for this course. So if you're done playing small and fair, if you're ready to stop guessing and go beyond the visibility and drive real conversions and reorders and get help along the way, learn more and apply at fairaccelerator.com or at the link in the show notes. I'll see you inside. You've spent years building your brand, the name, the look, the products people recognize as yours. But here's the uncomfortable question most founders never ask until it's too late. Is any of it actually protected? My guest today is Amber Gilormo, founder of The Boutique Lawyer and an attorney who spent over a decade in the courtroom before she started helping entrepreneurs stay out of the courtroom. She's here to break down the legal foundations every product brand needs to scale in plain English with zero jargon and zero fear. Welcome to She Sells Differently. Hi, friends. Welcome to She Sells Differently, the show for aspiring women entrepreneurs looking to overcome the fear of selling and grow thriving businesses from a place of authenticity and confidence. I'm Andy Hart, and it wasn't all that long ago that I was a sales executive for a Fortune 500 company. But I knew in my heart that I was called to use my gifts for something more, something different. That's exactly why I created the She Sells Differently podcast. Each episode is going to deliver you business strategies, tools, and mindset shifts to help set you and your brand apart from our culture's expectations. It's time to elevate your sales and build a profitable, sustainable business you're proud of, one built on integrity, grace, and humility. It's time to learn how to sell differently. Welcome, Amber, to the She Sells Differently podcast. I'm so excited that you are here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Before we hit record, I was just saying that I have not had anyone on the podcast talk from a legal perspective. So that's really exciting. I am excited to just hear all of your wisdom. I know my listeners are too. And so before we jump into all of our questions, I would love to just hear a little bit more about your background, because I know you've spent over a decade in high stakes litigation, and that's really transformed to what you do today. So talk a little bit through that.
Yeah, it's been a long road to opening like the boutique lawyer and associated brands, but I have been practicing law for about 16 years. I started in general practice, which was like this incredible like trial by fire experience. I had this really old school boss that like he was like, Amber, go to this Bartow County bond hearing, and I get there and I don't know what the case is about, and it's like a armed robbery bond hearing thing I've got to do, and it's like just figuring it out on the go. So what that did like incredibly well was introduce me to like all different areas of the law. This was like 16 years ago, back when I was studying for the bar, and then when I got admitted, I worked for him as well. And attended these hearings and such, and I never forget like my first trial I attended as second chair, which is like you're not leading your trial, but you're like there and you step in when you have to. My boss was always late, and so I was sitting there like, oh, actually it was armed robbery trial, and the judge looks at me and he's like, Amber, go get Mr. Smith because I'm going to have you up here arguing. And I was like, okay, I'm going to cross off criminal defense off my list. Practicing.
Yeah.
Like, done with this. That was like the most high stress moment. But something I did for him that I really enjoyed was I attended like a mediation, a contract dispute, business dispute between two businesses, and it was contract based. And then I had a few other different types of matters that we helped him with. But that was my first taste of the business world, like as a fresh associate right out of law school. And then since then, I had been practicing I spent many years practicing personal injury. So we'd bring claims against insurance companies and companies for like negligence. I was a plaintiff's lawyer. And then about 6 years ago, I opened up the boutique lawyer and founded the online business practice to my law firm. And since then, we've been focusing on helping like online businesses start and scale their brands on like a solid legal foundation. With any line of work, there is like this incredible learning curve, but I think you really get to figure out what you like and what you don't like in the practice of law. And one of the things I really enjoyed was helping people figure out how to do something correctly, like with business, because most business owners don't set out to like hurt people or like do
Right.
something wrong. It's usually something you fall into. And so that's an area of the law that I was really well versed in, is like kind
Yeah.
of finding the business owner who fell into doing something wrong and suing them for it. So I was like, let me help these people figure it
Yeah.
out.
And
And
it's
that's what I
so
focus on
needed.
now. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So, my listeners, they're mostly product based
Mhm.
businesses. And if they're selling steadily, let's say at pop-up markets, on maybe on Etsy, a lot of my clients are getting into wholesale because that's what I focus on.
Mhm.
So what would you say are the non-negotiable legal pieces that these business owners need to have in place before they really scale versus the stuff that people obsess over that can really honestly just wait?
Yeah. Um, So sometimes, like when you get into business, even like for product-based businesses, in particular, it can kind of feel like when you start to look into the legal things you need to do, like everything all at once. Like it kind of feels like a lot.
Yeah.
And that's not to say it's not a lot, but there are things that you should focus on. A few of those things would be like, first and foremost, if you're selling products for, depends on what you're selling, but if you're selling products that are like consumables or like to children or like with small parts, or maybe they're candles, if you have like some sort of regulatory framework around your product, you should probably think about forming an LLC to like insulate you, to separate your personal earning power and income from your business's debts and responsibilities and liabilities. That's like a huge step, right? I think that's a big piece. It really helps. The limited liability company is what an LLC stands for people wondering,
Yeah.
or those who don't know, but it definitely is one of those pieces that helps insulate you. It's like the firewall between you personally as Jane Smith and your business as
Yeah.
like Jane's Boutique. It's what separates that. So that's one of my favorite tools. And then, of course, if you're getting into wholesale, you need to make sure like you really have a very clear understanding of a wholesale agreement. I think that's probably the biggest piece that I see people mess up. I think in wholesale relationships is either not having a contract in place, which happens depending on like the product
Mhm.
and who you're the retailer you're sending it to. Um, but having that in place to, it's really the, like, day-to-day stuff that would go wrong, the deliverables, like, how long it takes to get there, shipments, things breaking, like, nonconformity of goods, like, understanding those pieces of a contract and how that plays in are really, really important. So, um, first, as a risk-averse individual, I mean, go figure, I'm a lawyer, I'm, like, pretty risk-averse.
Right.
That's why I always recommend the LLC first. It's just probably, like, my natural instinct, like, protect
Yeah.
yourself and then focus on your business, because I find out, like, when you have that kind of peace of mind, you can, like, really dig in, but then focus on protecting your business through your contracts.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, like, an easy segue to starting there. In I don't wanna say skip all the regulatory framework around products, because there's plenty. Like, if you have skincare, depending on the types of claims you make for your products, just depends on what you make. But
Yeah.
definitely, focusing there first, I think, is a good starting point.
That's a really good first 2 steps. So LLC, and then, you said the contract piece. So I wanna dive into the contract piece a little bit because I know a lot of my clients will sell on Fair, and Fair will take
Mhm,
care of that contract piece when you're buying through that platform.
mhm,
But what does that look like when you're selling wholesale directly on your, like, let's say, Shopify website?
mhm,
Um, I have a pretty in-depth form that clients have to fill out, and a lot of times now I'll just direct them to Fair. But
mhm.
when you say contract, walk us through what that includes, when you're wholesaling direct.
Yeah, so even though, like, a platform like Fair does have the contract in place for you, like, they take care of that, as you said, it's really important to understand what's in that contract, right? So when you're looking at those things, whenever somebody's placing a wholesale order, there's gonna be terms that govern the sale or the exchange between you and the person buying it. Those wholesale terms should cover things like, pricing tiers, minimum order quantities, payment timing, net terms, um, the list goes on, right? So if
Yep.
it's something is damaged, lost, delayed shipments, like these are it's the meat and potatoes of the exchange. But a contract is really important in any situation, but really important in wholesale because it's the basis for that transaction, right? Even those other things that will come up, like setting return, restock, reorder terms, so that you're not the person or the business absorbing the surprises. Contracts are really important in that way where they, like, set the expectations between the parties and the boundaries regarding, like, the purchase, what
Yeah.
happens when something goes wrong. And I think that's kind of a big thing with contracts, right? Because they are there to protect that relationship and help that, like, buying relationship grow rather than being, like, a sign of distrust. I love
Yeah.
to see, like, fully in-depth contracts because it's a service to the buyer when they know the rules and what to expect.
Yeah. That's a really good mindset shift because I think a lot of people, when they look at contracts, they think it is a sign of distrust. But what you just said is it's really the foundation, the basis for a sustainable, thriving business partnership.
Mhm.
I don't think a lot of people look at it that way. And so I love that you said that. And I also, just building on the wholesale piece, because that really does change the game when a brand is pitching stores and you're selling business to business instead of to a consumer. So that what are some other, like, just the new legal exposure that shows up when you're selling B2B versus business to consumer?
That's a great, like, kind of, I guess, fine line, or not fine line, but line to draw so that you understand the differences there because, when you have that exchange between a business, um, you know, my mind always goes first and foremost to the size of the order, right? So we're usually talking about, like, a larger amount of money, more
Mhm.
product, more inventory involved. Whenever we're selling more, our risk in the exchange goes up as opposed to a consumer. It's a singular transaction, so our risk is much lower, like in general. So what could happen in terms of when something goes wrong, you have like way more risk involved with the B2B exchange. Not all. Let me back this up because I think I phrased that in a way I don't mean to scare people because you have like not risk in that sense, but monetary issues that could come
Yeah.
up, like you having a larger purchase order in place. If there's a problem with that order, then there's more money on the table that you have to figure out how to work this out. When it's a consumer, like with a problem with a product, it's a singular, refund or a singular return or a
Yeah.
singular issue. When you have something with a business who's purchasing your products, they're going to resell those. So you have a wider like net that you've established there, and that's great for your business because we need to make those sales, but it does carry like legal risk with it that you need to make sure that you are being very clear in how to approach the transaction. And when I say clear, I'm really like that's your fallback on that
Yeah.
wholesale contract is like being
Yeah.
clear in the exchange.
That's great information. I don't think a lot of people, well, I don't, it's not I think. I know a lot of people don't think about that transition when they're moving into wholesale and just what exposure that opens them up to. So it's really good to start thinking like that. And it my my next question is most common, most expensive legal mistakes that you see product founders make. And I ask that because I think that it's good to be aware of them
Yeah.
instead of figuring out on the back end, you know?
So let's put on our intellectual property hats here because this is the piece that I can say confidently is the most common. There can be more expensive things that happen, but most common legal problem that arises with product sellers is that we haven't done our proper due diligence with clearing like our brand,
Mm,
our trademark. So whenever you have a brand name, usually comes up in the brand name more than the logo, but um, we want to make sure that we have the right to do business as that name in our space. And the way to make sure that you have the right to do business as that particular name, your brand name, is to make sure you have like a clear road to owning that trademark or registering your trademark. That's a piece that many business owners miss. They forget to actually search their brand name to see if somebody else is already using it or if there's something that's like substantially similar out there because and I say it's expensive, but it's very common and it's very problematic for product sellers because for the most part, we're like branding our goods, right? Like we're
yeah,
putting our name, our logo on our inventory. And if we have to change our inventory,
yeah,
which can happen. Like if you get a cease and desist from somebody because you're infringing on their trademark, whether they have a registered trademark or they were using it before you may have to like stop selling those branded goods immediately. Sometimes
yeah,
they'll give you a sell-off period, but that's not always the case. It depends on who you're infringing on. And so that can be like tens of thousands of dollars depending on how much inventory we have. And then the rebrand part, it's not only just like putting a new sticker on our products, it's really like you lose your brand recognition. People come to know you as something, you lose your like SEO footprint or some of it. And so those are really like important pieces we need to think about. And I would say that the best thing you can do there is if you already launched your product and you have never looked at trademarks or maybe even never heard of it, which is so common too, like don't feel bad.
yeah,
It's literally look up trademark search. And there's going to be about 1 billion paid searches. We do this in my law
yeah,
firm too for clients, but there's tons of ways you can do that. You can go to the USPTO.gov, that's the United States Patent and Trademark Office's website, and use it's like an acronym, TESS. It's Trademark Electronic Search System. You can do that, type in your brand name and see what comes up. And just because somebody has a mark that's registered, that's like the same as yours or very, very close, it's really only a problem if they're actually doing business in your same space. So, like, for example, two marks can peacefully coexist in the product world. You have Dove chocolate and Dove soap, right? Very different
yeah,
things.
Yeah,
So you can have the same name as another product out there, you just can't be doing the same thing.
that makes
So,
sense.
those are the kinds of things we look for, but that can be really, like, really problematic for, like, business owners in general, and I was almost said new business owners, but it's any business owner. I think some of my, like, long-term, long-standing clients have been in business for, I mean, 5, 10 years before they ever tried to trademark anything. So those are always tough conversations when I get there and be like, "Oh, by the way, somebody has trademarked your name. It's gonna be
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z in order to get it, or you have to rebrand." So it's a really important step to take.
Is it a possibility when you said to get it, is it a possibility to buy a trademark from another brand?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So those are, there are many ways to go about that. You can acquire trademark rights to a phrase. I've helped clients with that actually. Yeah, I had a client, it was a marketing agency, and they had a name that they really wanted, and another marketing agency already had it. We approached the brand and we acquired the rights to it. Essentially bought the trademark, and the other agency stopped doing business under that name. So yes, you can do it. It's definitely going to be involved like a capital exchange, so you're going to be
Yeah.
purchasing it from them, but it is something you can do.
That's good to know for some people out there listening that might be like, "Oh, no," and
Yeah.
they do the trademark search, and then there is, oh, you have options,
Yeah.
but it's good to know ahead of time instead of be
Yeah,
caught in
I
the
mean, let's be honest, there are plenty of brands out there with the same name
Yeah,
or something very
right.
similar. There's plenty. You're not always gonna have a problem. It's only a problem when it becomes a problem. So when
Yeah,
you get a cease and desist in the mail. So, if you're out there and like worst case scenario, you're like, "Amber, I just don't even wanna hear this today." And you go to Google and you type in your name and you see like somebody who's been doing business since 1988. Is that name? You're like, "Oh, man, what am I gonna do?" Well, if you don't have a cease and desist in the mail, like, it's maybe not the most urgent thing. It's something to be mindful of, like, and you can approach it on your timeline as opposed to theirs. So that's kind of the way I approach it is, like, you never wanna be forced to rebrand, but if you
yeah,
become aware of it, then you can consider it and how it's best to act on it.
yeah. So this might all feel intimidating and expensive to those
Yeah.
that are listening, and so what's the simplest way to protect yourself, maybe without even having a lawyer on
Mhm.
retainer?
Yeah. First things first, before you launch like your next product, or if you're like thinking about getting started or haven't started yet, or even in the midst of it, I would, there's plenty of free tools out there. So, I'm going to piggyback off the trademark piece so that you understand like you don't have to hire a lawyer to do a trademark search. Because when you go to the USPTO's website, it's just like any other governmental website out there. It looks unapproachable. Like,
Right?
talking in things, and you're like, "I don't know what this is." So, there's a service, that I, will recommend to people who are, like, searching for free, and I believe it's called trademarkclear.com.
Mhm.
It's a free AI-based search for trademark, so go there, type in your name, and then the AI is cool because it gives you, like, a report and kind of, prioritizes things in the order that the AI thinks could be confusing, and that's something you can do on your own, and it gives you the reasoning behind why it pinged, like, it shows you the reasoning there, and it gives you a really good introduction, so that's for brand clearance. And then, if I'm like, "Okay, Amber, but you're talking about, like, all these other things I have to know about or do, that are legal that aren't necessarily brand related," um, there's there's great options. I would first and foremost get on, like, a legal newsletter list. So we have one,
Mhm.
for me, from my business, I send one out and just like keep people updated on like new and developing laws that are related to online businesses. That's a really great one. And I actually just launched, here I am talking about all of my offers. I just launched a legal magazine that's free, that you get quarterly. And it comes with like, swipe copy and templates depending on like that issue's, topic. The next
Yeah.
topic we're doing in the fall is, actually intellectual property. And so we give out like tons of free content with that in terms of things you need to know. There's like recent news and cases in there, just making online business owners aware. Um, I start there. I start with the stuff that's, like, publicly available, and something I'm not anti-AI. I know a lot of people are, like, anti-AI. I'm not anti-AI, I am responsible AI. I think one of the more
Yes.
responsible uses of AI for small businesses, is to issue spot. So if you think you may need to do something, you can ask AI, like, that's the big guys are using it, so go to AI and ask. Ask them, like,
Yeah.
if you have I'm not telling you to get legal advice from AI, but I'm saying, like, legal issue spot. Like, you may find something you weren't aware of. Like, awareness is 90% of the journey in online business,
Yeah.
of what you need to do. So I think that's a really great use of AI for, like, issue spotting.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And we'll put the links to your resources because I know I'm going to get messages asking about how do I find her magazine? How do I get on her newsletter? So we'll put all that in the show notes if you're interested in that too. One of the things I hear from my listeners often is that the legal, the selling, the business side pulls them away from the creative work, which is why they started their business in the first place. But you've built a legal firm around making legal things feel simple and aligned. And how does getting the legal foundation right actually free someone to sell more boldly instead of holding them back?
I think you hit the nail on the head because it's like when you have that roadblock, and I had one of those I mean, I'm a lawyer, so it's easy for me to talk
Yeah,
about, "Oh, do X, Y, and Z with your legal stuff," but I had that roadblock with, like, the financial piece because when you run, like, a law firm, you have to do, like, IOLTA and our, like, trust account accounting, and then you have all these moving pieces, and that was, like, really preventing me from taking on more clients because it's like, I have
yeah,
to do all of this stuff, I don't know how to do it, and, like, figuring out how to do it prevented me from, like, putting myself out there because I knew on the back end, it was kind of like a mess. And that
yeah,
was, like, 10 years ago. But then I was like, "Let me call up a bookkeeper." I went to a continuing legal education class at our state bar, and it was about, like, how to run a small business practice,
yeah,
for law. And, they had a bookkeeper there, and I, like, met them, and I'm like, "I'm working with you, just let me sign your paperwork today." And since then, like, I've really felt like, freer, right? So when you
yeah,
take out of those things that feel scary, like, feel hard to understand, because it was hard to understand. I'm not a math person. It was hard for me to understand, and whether you're comfortably outsourcing or you're working with a partner who can explain it to you in a way that where it's not scary and it's easy to understand, you really feel more comfortable putting yourself out there in the same way
yeah,
like my financial stuff was holding me back like from the back end of my business. I do see that roadblock with a lot of product sellers and small businesses in general because the idea of going to your secretary of state's website and forming an llc, you're like, what do I
yes,
have to do next? Like, when am I going to get confirmation? What do I need to do after this? How do I get my EIN? Like, and do all these different pieces. It can be overwhelming. It can stop you from doing the thing altogether that would protect you.
yeah,
um, because I just feel like when people have that protection in place, you feel safer. You
yeah,
feel safer at your core in your business. You feel safer to take a risk, which business is risk. So
yeah,
when you sell more, you have more risk. That's how it goes. But you want to make sure that the risk doesn't really damage you. So taking care of those legal pieces helps reduce your risk. I always think of like legal stuff as a deterrent for risk. Like risk is
yeah,
going to things are going to happen. But how you take care of it, as long as you have your legal ducks in a row, it makes it so much more seamless.
yeah, for sure. I would love to hear if you have you may or may not have an interesting story. I know you've helped over 7,500 customers, I think, when I was looking at your website. So if you have a story of a founder whose business or trajectory really changed once she got her legal house in order, what became possible or what changed from before?
Mhm. So, I'm just gonna pick a recent client.
Yeah.
I helped a client who had, a company. They actually did have a textbook, like a physical product, but also had, like, an educational piece to it. And she had seen, I think she came from a family of entrepreneurs, and she had seen them deal with, like, legal issues in
Mm.
their business, whether it was, customer complaints or other things that she had fielded with them that resulted in legal issues. So she was aware, like, I need to take care of my legal things, right? But she came to me very early on in the process, and within about in the process of her starting the business, we worked together. We did like, I mean, everything comprehensive from like state compliance, registrations, all the way through to like terms and conditions, intellectual property, trademark registrations. A year and a half later, she sells the company, so she was able to like
Wow.
exit very cleanly because everything was so buttoned up. And that's a great thing too. It's like if you do want to sell your company at some point or exit in a way, it's so much easier and cleaner and more likely to happen like a sale if you have those
Yeah.
legal pieces in a row. So, and she exited for a great amount. So that was a really exciting thing to see. Like her basically found a company and then go on to sell it for, multiple six figures was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing too, because I don't think a lot of people think about the end game
Mhm.
or what their exit strategy is. And I had a really great mentor one time say, build your company like you are going to sell it, like with that
Mhm.
in mind. And
Mhm.
so that is one of the best pieces of advice because you just don't think about the little things.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up, and if someone finishes this episode and they want to start working with you, where can they find you and where should they start?
Well, the only social media platform I am active on is Instagram at the boutique lawyer. But I also, through my website, is a great way to reach me, theboutiquelawyer.com. So I am one of those people who are, reads every email they get, every message. So you can just send me a message and reach out.
Yes. And she has a ton of great templates out there for contracts and things like that. And so we'll put the link to that in the show notes because I think this is such a great way to have a lawyer vetted contract instead of doing something on AI. And so we'll put the link to your contract shop too and all of your
Cool.
templates because they're awesome. So,
Thank you.
well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been eye opening, I know for me and for a lot of my listeners. And so your wisdom and experience is so appreciated.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Andy. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I'll be back next Wednesday with another episode of She Sells Differently. Until then, I'm cheering you on. All right, that's a wrap on today's episode of She Sells Differently. Friends, it would be a huge blessing to me if you would take 2 seconds to rate and subscribe to my podcast. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Until then, I'm cheering you on in your entrepreneurial journey. See you next time.